Well, the title of my paper is Globalization and Social Stratification in India. As all of us are aware that globalization in its present form is a process that has implications not only for social and cultural institutions of the developed countries but is also transforming the social fabric of developing countries like India. I am not going in details of the conceptual dimension of globalization. So I will come directly on that how we can analyze the process of globalization. The process of globalization can be analyzed at two levels. Number one, globalization as a structural process and globalization as a cultural process. As a structural process, globalization is associated with major institutions of the society such as social stratification, economic institutions, political institutions, legal institutions, educational institutions, media and communication organizations, and religious institutions of society. As a cultural process, it is associated with public opinions, moral values, individual and societal norms and beliefs. Social stratification is one of the core concepts in sociology, and much of sociological analysis is centered on the form of social stratification in a given society. Therefore, from sociological point of view, it becomes important to analyze the impact of globalization on social stratification system. It can be analyzed at two levels. Number one at the global level and number two at the local level. At the global level, globalization is creating a hierarchy of structural units or organizations in different spheres of social life. It can be seen in the form of multinational companies, corporates, global agencies like IMF, WTO, global organizations for protection of human rights, global media organizations, global expansion of religious organizations, etc. The scale of these organizations is global. Thus, a hierarchy of institutions can be easily identified at three levels: global, regional, and the local. As these organizations are functionally interlinked with each other, they are passing through a process of transformation. These organizations, on the one hand, are coping with the changes taking place at the global level, and on the other hand, they have also to cope with the local conditions, that is, with local structures and cultural patterns. The consequences of globalization on social stratification system can be analyzed in terms of its bearings on three important structural units, that is caste structure, class structure, and power structure. And in addition to educational institutions, administrative hierarchy, religious institutions, legal institutions, and media organizations. Traditional social stratification system in India was based on the caste system. Therefore, it is pertinent to understand the bearings of globalization on caste system in India. Caste system is characterized by some features which are either core or peripheral to it in contemporary Indian society. The core characteristics are that is membership based on ascription, endogamy, and hierarchy, while peripheral characteristics are restriction on taking food from other caste people, occupational choice, and interaction with members of certain castes. And these peripheral characters are not maintained strictly in Indian society today, but the core characteristics are still maintained. Globalization as a structural process is also is also creating social inequalities at different levels. In rural areas, it is affecting agricultural growth negatively and thereby generating more and more poverty in rural areas, which in turn may initiate a new wave of massive migration from rural to urban centers in search of jobs. The acquisition of land for large scale development projects by multinational companies may result into high incidence of landlessness among the farmers as well as significant changes in land use pattern as highly fertile agricultural land is being acquired for such projects in different parts of the country. Another implication of globalization can be seen on the public sector undertakings. There have been a tendency among the policy makers my battery is being low. Right. There has been a tendency among the policy makers of the country to privatize the public sector undertakings in the recent past. Gradually, most of the public sector undertakings are to be privatized for one or the other reasons. As a result, number of jobs in public sector are to be decreased and more jobs are to be available in private sectors controlled by the chain of global, regional and local level players. The growth of private sector, an essential element of globalization, has to generate massive migration of people both within and outside the country. The social interactions between the people of diverse caste background may affect core characteristics of the caste such as loosening of hierarchical position within and between caste and by an increase in intercaste marriages although within a limited range. This has also to lead the polarization of caste into two or three broad categories like upper caste, Dalit and Dalit caste. Intercaste marriages may take place within these broader framework of castes. Politicization of economic issues such as reservation in education and jobs in public and private sector may also give rise to tensions and conflict within and between these castes. Another important category of social stratification is class structure. Globalization as a structural process has wider implications for class structure of developing as well as developed societies. It has to bring significant changes in the existing class structure of all the societies. However, it has to lead more negative consequences in developing societies rather than in the developed ones, as it leads to marginalization of the underprivileged classes in these societies. Consequently, there may be an increase in high incidence of poverty and unemployment for these classes as majority of them are either illiterate or have a very low level of education and also lacking in occupational skills required for the job in the fast changing occupational structure of the society. Furthermore, the application of computers and information technology is transforming the occupational structure in such a way that the job of lower cadre may be reduced significantly if not disappeared. As a result, more tensions and conflicting situations may emerge in these societies. The pauperization of these sections, particularly of small and marginal farmers and agricultural laborers in rural areas and workers in declining local industries and other marginalized workers in urban centers on the one hand and the prosperity of the upper middle classes of the urban centers on the other has to create sharp cleavages in the class structure of these societies. New global market situation has to give rise to new classes mainly in the middle and upper levels of occupational structures of these societies, particularly in the secondary but more dominantly in tertiary sectors of the economy. Information services are transforming the basic structure of different economic institutions of the society, which require different kind of occupational skills and work culture more suitable to multinational companies. This is creating demand for jobs such as in call centers, which are totally new to the existing work ethos of these traditional societies. Now, power structure. The power structure, an important dimension of social stratification, has also to be affected by the process of globalization. It has already been pointed out by the social theorists that the globalization will lead towards the weakening of the nation state as it will snatch some of the powers of political elites, particularly of controlling the economy of these countries. This may lead to political instability at the center in these societies and the rise of subnationalism in border areas of these nations. The decline in the power of political elites may also affect the interest of the underprivileged classes in the liberal privatized global economy. It may have serious negative consequences for the existing reservation policies as the political elites will not be able to pressurize the private companies, particularly MNCs, multinational companies, and their local associates to adopt the policy of reservation in their institution, as these organizations have a different kind of orientation emphasizing on achievements rather than on ascriptive traits of the candidate. The global character of these organizations enables them not to succumb to such political pressures. However, the locus of power may shift to new political institutions like human rights organizations, NGOs, and civil society, both at the local as well as at the global level, which may intervene in political processes in these societies. The changing class structure of the society is to be reflected in educational institutions as they have to further differentiated and stratified at the levels of primary, secondary, and higher education. The growing demands of the global economy are to be fulfilled mainly by the private educational institutions to be set up as per international standards and would be accessed only by the affluent sections of the society. The public sector educational institutions in the initial phase may try to cope with the changes in globalizing world, but due to certain structural constraints, limitations, they may be able to compete with they may not be able to compete with private sector educational and professional institutions. Moreover, attractive salary packages and perks in private sector have to attract the talented faculties of public sector educational and professional institutions to shift in private sector institutions. Thus, the educational institutions and professional educational institutions have to become more and more stratified and have to produce high degree of social inequality at different levels in society. Similar changes can be observed in healthcare organization, and in this area we see that global level multi-specialty hospitals are being opened in India, which are attracting patients not only with different parts of the country but from abroad, particularly from the other developing countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, some African countries, and some countries of the developed society are also coming because the expenditure is 2 or 3 times less. The same treatment is given in a very cheaper rate. So this has promoted the health tourism in India. Then cultural as a cultural process, globalization will have significant consequences for organizations responsible for pattern maintenance. Interactive technology of communications are at the heart of communication revolution that is occurring in India. The computer and its various applications in satellite and cable television, telecommunications, and the internet are the main driving force of communication revolution taking place in India. Communication technology includes hardware equipment, organizational structures, and social values by which individuals collect, process, and exchange information. Among the new communication technologies, Internet and mobile phones have tremendous capacity to penetrate the remote corners of the society and thereby creating at least two new social strata of information rich and information poor in all major types of social formations, the tribal, the rural, and the urban. The most important characteristics of the internet is that it has blurred the notion of time and space, in the sense that communication through internet can take place in a fraction of a second, connecting two or more people at the same time from any corner of the world, which has important implications for social processes both for the developed and developing society. Globalization with new communication technologies are also providing opportunity to popularize different kind of values, beliefs, and normative aspects of different cultures of different societies to disseminate at the global level through internet, websites, and blogs and TV channels. Some religious TV channels are also spreading the religious ideology at the global level. For example, Hare Krishna movement can be seen in different parts of the world, in Russia, in Ukraine, and in many other countries by ESCON. So there is a conscious effort among the religious institutions, particularly those having liberal and universal elements in their ideology, to adopt new communication technologies for dissemination of messages of their sect, not only at the national level but also in the developed countries. The main target of these organizations are non-resident Indians, and in last 2 decades the spread of some elements of Indian culture by a number of religious organizations can be seen. Now I will come on the concluding part of my paper. Thus, the process associated with globalization has the capacity to transform both the structure and culture of not only of developing societies but also have significant consequences for the developed countries as well. In this sense, globalization is different from modernization, which could not generate the impetus for transformation of the system of social stratification in India and is considered only as a cultural process by Indian sociologists. In contrast, globalization is a multi-dimensional and multi-directional process which has now generated the impetus to transform the social and cultural institutions of the developed as well as of developing society. The types of societies which will emerge as a consequence of this forceful process of 21st century will definitely be highly stratified, multi-ethnic, and multicultural in character. Thank you very much. Okay. Hmm. Okay. Hmm. May you please repeat? I could not follow your question. Hmm. Okay. I think I can understand now to some extent your question. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, my reply is that the globalization is mainly, that it is a form of capitalism. And in this, the capital, that is those who are having property, who are having money, power, they have alignment with the political elites. And this alignment that affect the management not only of private sector but also the management of the public sector undertakings. And this alliance is mainly dysfunctional for taking right type of decisions by the bureaucrats or technocrats in these organizations. So this association has some negative consequences, and I have pointed out in general that globalization is creating more and more social inequality in the class structure of Indian society. More globalization will take place, more social inequality will uh, happen in our society. So it has negative consequences. It has exclusion of a large section of the society. At mass level, there will be exclusion from the economy, and it will create poverty and unemployment. So government need to intervene at this level, how to reduce this social inequality in economy and as well as in at the social level. So I think yes, government has some negative consequences as a result of globalization in developing societies. I agreed with your point of view. Yeah. Well, I think that globalization has implications not only at the local level but also has at the global level. Because after the Second World War, a number of the international institutions were created to make the balance of power in the world. And these institutions are now obsolete. I think they are not effective, they are not functional, they have no impact, their decisions are not taken seriously, whether it is UNO or any other organization. And we see during the COVID-19 to what in what way the World Health Organization was very ineffective. They were issuing one uh, advisory at one time, and another time they are uh, issuing some other advisory which were contradicting to their earlier one. So I think that these organizations are now almost defunct and have no utility in today's globalized world. Pardon? Okay.